Hey everyone, welcome back to Automation 24/7. So today we are going to discuss a very important interview question that's asked in Java, and that is basically final. What is final? So this question can be asked if you're applying for a Java developer or in interviews such as Selenium automation. So a very common question. So we will be just discussing in a simplified way. So let's start. So what is final? So as the term final is basically a keyword. So what is final? Final is obviously it's a keyword which is basically a non-access modifier. So non-access modifier that is used to restrict the user. That is used to restrict let me just minimize a bit, so this would be fine. So final keyword, which is basically a non-access modifier, is used to restrict the user. Okay, so some restriction. Okay, so to impose some restriction on a variable or a method or a class, we use final, right? So final is basically a non-access modifier which is used to restrict the user. So if a user wants to use something, maybe he wants to use a variable, but that should be restricted, so the final keyword should be applied before that variable. Similarly, for class and method also we have something that I'm going to discuss. So as I said, it's basically a non-access modifier which is used to restrict the user. Now this final keyword is, or rather final keyword can be used in many context, right? So in many contexts it can be used. Like final can be a variable, a method, and a class, right? So final can be variable, method, and class. So final can be a variable, method, and class. Now what happens if a variable is final? So always remember, a variable is made final to stop its value change. So stop the value change. So if I assign int a equals to 100, and after that if I assign again a equals to 400, and I try to print that value of a, so it will print 400. But if at the initial level I make final, like if I make a equals to 100 as final, so no matter after that whatever value I am adding for a, it will not be taking, so the value will not be changed. So to keep a value from, or to keep a variable, like the value of a variable intact, like not to change it, we use final, right? In case of method, why we use method? So always remember to stop method overriding. So if a method is final, so that particular method cannot be overridden, right, by the subclass. Okay, so I'm going to show that in the code how it works actually. And when do we use a class as final? Always remember, a class is used as final when we need to stop inheritance, right? Inheritance, right? So a variable, like in case of a variable, if we want to make a variable as final, that is you do not want to change the value of it, so we will change the, like at that point of time we will make the variable as final. In case we want to make any method as final, that is then what happens, we cannot override it. So whenever a method is final, we cannot override it. So stop method overriding, and in that case, if we want to stop method overriding, then we will make method as final. If we want to make any class as final, that means we cannot extend that class. So to stop inheritance, like a parent class and a subclass, so the subclass cannot extend the parent class if the parent class is final. So let us check in practical what happens. So let me take you to my Eclipse IDE. So here is my IDE. So I already have a program written. So as you can see, this is a final demo.java program. So this is a class. So into the class, I have my public static void main, and outside the class, I have two classes. One is the parent class, which has some methods, and another class is class son, which extends father, and it also has some implementations, right? So what you can see is this son extends father. That means son extends the property of father, right? So now say if I make this class as final. So if I make this class as final, I'm going to get an error which says remove final modifier of father, because when a class is final, any subclass cannot extend that parent class. So whenever I'm removing the final, this error gets removed. Now let's talk about the method, that is final method. So suppose, as you can see, there are two methods, void add and here also void add, same methods. So this void add is basically overriding this void add of parent class father. Now suppose if I'm making this void add as final add. So when I'm making final add, just a second. Just a second, guys. Okay. Right. So, excuse me. So what I did basically, as you can see, this is the add method of the parent class, and this add method is inheriting, or it's basically overriding the add method of the parent class. So now what I did, I just made the add method of the parent class as final, and immediately I'm getting an error, remove final modifier. So a method, if it is final, so that particular method cannot be overridden. So as soon as I remove final, this error gets removed. So we understood, like in this way we can understand that method is final when we do not want to override it. So a method can be final when, why, to stop method overriding, and in case of class, as I showed you, to stop inheritance. So let's look at variable, like what when, why do we use like final variable. So suppose I'm using, as you can see, int a equals to 100. Again I'm using int a equals to 400, right? Okay. So here int a equals to 400, right? So now what I'm going to do is, or let's rather not use it here, as because the son is extending the father. So in the add method of the son class, I'm just reinitializing a equals to 400, right? So now what happens? Let's print the value of a. So I will be getting a equals to 400. because I overridden, like the value of a now changed to 400 from 200. So when I'm going to run this, it is going to print child class son now 400, right? Now if I make this variable as final, right, if I make this as final, so let's check what happens. Okay, just a second. Okay, so this is basically the final variable. Okay, now into the function. Yeah, so let me not make it at int, so let it be a equals to 400. Yeah, int a, sorry, b. Okay, so as you can see, final int b equals to 200. So it says remove final modifier. Now whenever I will be removing this final modifier, that time this result will, like this error will be removed. If I run the program in this way, so what happens, the value 100 gets printed, right? The value 100 gets printed because I'm using this a, right? Sorry, I need to print b. Okay, so let me again run this program. So as you can see, child class now 400. So child class now 400, it's printing the latest value of b, right? Now let's add the final keyword. So whenever I added the final keyword, I'm getting an error in b. It says remove final modifier. That means a variable, if it's final, I cannot override, like I cannot change the value of b. So the value of b cannot be changed from 200 to any value, right? Now as soon as I remove final, the error gets removed. As soon as I add final, the error again comes back. Now in this way, if I'm going to run the program, so what happens basically, I'm going to get an error. So it says the final field son.b cannot be assigned. So as per the definition, the final variable has its value unchanged. So to stop value change, we can make variable as final. To stop method overriding, we make the method as final. And to stop inheritance of the class, like to stop a subclass to inherit or to extend the properties of the parent class, we make the parent class as final. So this is the simple definition of final, and if you answer in this way, the interviewer will be pleased, and if you can demonstrate in code perspective and explain, then the interviewer will be more happy. So hopefully this video helped you to understand this question. So please do watch and keep subscribing Automation 24/7 for more such videos. We'll be coming with more interesting videos that will be helping you in your code, in your testing, in your interview questions, and so on and so forth. So thanks for watching. Bye bye. Have a good day.